Remember when everyone thought this would be the future of gaming? That cell phones would replace traditional home and handheld consoles and become the most successful of all time? And well, maybe they were right. Sure, gaming consoles are still around and doing very well, but everyone and their grandmas play mobile games. So it just makes sense that some of the most beloved gaming companies would put their franchises onto the widest market possible. So why don't we see that many of them? It doesn't make any sense. But there was one company that tried to turn their popular gaming company into a mobile gaming empire. With the onset of the iPhone and explosion of smartphones, mobile games were all the rage. Angry Birds, Fruit Ninja, Flappy Bird, Clash of Clans, Candy Crush, you name it, these games were seeing crazy amounts of success. You couldn't spend a day out in public without seeing someone playing these. It really was everywhere. But so were regular gaming consoles. The Wii, Xbox 360, PS3, and DS, all of them did incredibly well. So as long as nothing drastically unforeseen would happen to Nintendo's home console business, everything will be fine.
So today, welcome to the world of Wii U.
Okay, time to panic. If you've ever watched my channel before, you know the Wii U was a failure. But one of the lesser known consequences of said failure was Nintendo's, adventure into the mobile gaming space. If you can't beat them, join them. So, knowing that the Wii U was failing, Nintendo hoped and prayed that somehow cell phone gaming would save them from their pit of despair. And did it work? Well, I'll let you decide. Because as much as I would like to say they failed, their first game was anything but a failure. The summer of 2016 seemed like it would be just like any other. Sunny weather, no clouds, and a gradually increasing temperature. But something about this year would be different, all because of this stupid little app. Yeah, this game was unlike any other. No other game has ever brought swarms of people outside, causing a public disturbance whenever a rare Pokemon spawned. No doubt about it, this game was a massive success. But seemingly just as quickly as it came, it vanished, fading into obscurity as one of the many fads of the 2010s. But that isn't actually true, because Pokemon Go is anything but dead. Even though the game doesn't have quite the same reach as it did back in the day, millions of people still play it, and its players are more dedicated than ever. This game literally prints money. People will pay huge amounts just to make an egg hatch or revive their Groudon or just join a raid. It's crazy. But what happened in 2016 to make this game so successful anyways? Well, for me, and I'm sure many other Pokemon fans, this game felt like a dream come true. It felt like you were actually embarking on a real Pokemon journey, going out into the wild and trying to find the rarest Pokemon you could. It was incredible. But this game wasn't just for Pokemon fans. No, it created Pokemon fans. Even if you didn't care about the series at all, the novelty of going out in real life and collecting creatures was unmatched. In fact, this game brought so many new people to the series that Game Freak made a whole $60 game about it 2 years later. But eventually, after a few months of pretty lackluster updates, the game started to decline in the public eye, and it never really reached the same level of popularity. But what if they could do it again? What if they could get all these Pokemon fans to come back for a game unlike any other? Introducing Pokemon Duel. Now, unlike Pokemon Go, there's a good chance you've never heard of this one, because this game was a pay-to-win turn-based strategy game using Pokemon characters. Now, this game was not that great, but to be honest, I really liked it. I don't know if it was just the fact that collecting these rare Pokemon created dopamine in my monkey brain, but it just felt really cool, even though you could literally pay to get any Pokemon you wanted. Obviously, however, this game didn't do as well as Pokemon Go. In fact, it didn't do very well at all, because only 3 years after it came out, it shut down and has never come back. Okay, so hopefully after that mess, Nintendo learned their lesson, right? I mean, surely from now on they'll only make quality mobile games. But if I'm being honest, I lied to you. Because Nintendo's first mobile game wasn't actually Pokemon Go. It was this. Miitomo. This game was like if you took the Miiverse on the Wii U and Tomodachi Life on the 3DS and fused them together to create an unholy Frankenstein monster of a game. And I say game very loosely because this wasn't really much of a game at all. It was actually a social media platform, kinda? In this game, you got coins by doing pretty menial tasks like answering questions, but also sharing it on social media. And from those coins, you could then use them to buy stuff in the shop and play minigames. But despite that this app was very charming, there wasn't much to do. After a while, you would go through all the objectives and minigames, and it became somewhat repetitive. It was initially a huge success, amassing over 10 million downloads worldwide, but this number quickly dropped off after players slowly but surely stopped using the app, and eventually this got to a point where the app was discontinued 2 years later. So the very same year that all of the other ones I've talked about have come out, one more game would come out, and this one would be different, because this one had Mario. Super Mario Run was a 2D side-scrolling platformer on the go. Now an actual 2D Mario game for your phone? That seems pretty crazy, and to be fair, it was. But it wasn't exactly a real 2D Mario game. It was heavily simplified with your only controls being the jump button. And it basically stole all of the assets from New Super Mario Bros. U, but just dumbed them down to be on a cell phone. Nevertheless, this game did quite well. Just kidding, it did incredibly well. Over its 7 years on the market, it received 300 million downloads, becoming one of the most successful games on the App Store. Oh, and did I forget to mention that you have to pay to access almost all of the levels? So no doubt about it, this game was a massive success, and it definitely still exists to this day. Their next mobile game might seem pretty unassuming at first. I mean, it's just a simplified version of Fire Emblem, right? Well, there's just one more word that makes Fire Emblem Heroes so special: microtransactions. By paying money, you can unlock characters, upgrades, and more. And this has created a huge community of extremely dedicated fans who spend very large amounts of money on this game. In fact, this is the second highest grossing Nintendo mobile game right next to Pokemon Go, and it's a very large success. Okay, so Nintendo has made a lot more mobile games, so it's time to speedrun them. Ready? Animal Crossing Pocket Camp came out in 2017, a simplified version of Animal Crossing where you can unlock clothes, furniture, and more as you progress. It did pretty well with $255 million in revenue. Dragalia Lost released in 2018 and was an action RPG published by Nintendo that did pretty well in its first few years, but eventually it was shut down due to a declining player base. Magikarp Jump was a game where you pretty much just click stuff with no real challenge or goal whatsoever. Not to say it's terrible, I mean I had fun with it, but in reality it's pretty shallow with nothing really going for it. It never shut down, but it also never really did that great either. Pokemon Quest was an action-adventure game? It was basically a bare-bones version of something like Mystery Dungeon, but it released on the Switch and phones. And while it wasn't really perceived that well, it still did pretty well on mobile devices. Dr. Mario World was a puzzle game released in 2019 that was very similar to its own series, but also took heavy inspiration from games like Candy Crush. However, it was shut down only 2 years later due to a lack of players. Pokemon Rumble Rush was a mobile version of the Pokemon Rumble games that had come out on previous Nintendo consoles. And this game lasted the shortest amount of time out of any other, only lasting 1 year and 2 months. Pokemon Masters EX was a heavily simplified version of Pokemon battles in the main series, except you only get one Pokemon per trainer, and the moves are heavily streamlined. Nevertheless, this game has microtransaction and received millions of dollars because of that. Pikmin Bloom was Niantic's attempt to try and recreate the success of Pokemon Go, but this time with Pikmin. Of course, it never reached the same level of success, but it did alright. Pokemon Unite was a mobile game using Pokemon characters. If you don't know what MOBAs are, they're basically the same types of games as League of Legends or Dota. And again, this game has microtransactions and gains massive revenue. But it also has quite a dedicated fanbase of people who really enjoy the game. Okay, time for Nintendo's last game. And while it might not be the most recent one that came out, it's been getting a lot of attention recently. Of course, I'm talking about Mario Kart Tour. Now, like most of the other games I've talked about, it takes a pre-existing, successful game, smushes it down to be much more simplified, slaps some microtransactions on it, and calls it a day. But I'm not really sure what to classify this as. On one hand, it was recently announced that no more updates would be coming to this game. But on the other, it's brought in a ton of new players, a bunch of revenue, and lasted for over 4 years. And it's even getting a bunch of its own tracks in the Mario Kart 8 DLC. So I think this game was more of a success than a failure. So that's it. Despite the fact that 40% of these games were failures, many of the ones that did well, did really well. So is this the future of gaming? Kinda. It's certainly not something that Nintendo should invest all their resources into. The Nintendo Switch makes billions of dollars each year, and it shows no signs of stopping. So it's not gonna overtake the Switch. But I really think that if Nintendo was smarter about how they made their mobile games, they could make another Pokemon Go. The mobile market is so huge, and with things like the Mario movie and success of the Switch, Nintendo is more in the public eye now than it has been in a very long time. So for the slim chance that one of their games will become a global sensation, I'd say it's a good idea to continue to make these games, because one of them is surely going to be a hit. Thanks for watching, see you later.